Good afternoon, members. 2 o'clock, and if we can make a start, please. I would like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching on the live stream to this meeting via the Fire Services YouTube page. The Fire Authority allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to use social media during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present turns their mobile phones off or to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place? There is no scheduled fire alarm today, so if the fire alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting and we'll have to make our way out via the nearest available fire exit. The muster point is in the car park to the rear of the building. Okay, item number 1, which is apologies for absence and declarations of interest. Tama?
Apologies received from Councillor Edna Murphy and Councillor Wayne Fitzgerald.
Thank you. Does any member wish to declare a disclosable pecuniary interest or a non-statutory disclosable interest? Excellent, going well.
Councillor Slatter's stuck on the A14, so she is on her way.
Okay, thank you for telling us. Okay, so item 2 is the minutes of the Fire Authority meeting held on the 19th of December 2024 and the action log. So we are being asked to approve the minutes of the meeting held on 19th December as an accurate record. If any member wants to raise a question on the accuracy of the minutes only, can they do so now? I see no one, so no objections, so we will take that as carried unanimously. Okay, over to the action log. Do members have any questions on the action log? No, so thank you very much. And we move on to item 3, which is the chair's announcements. I have a few, so please bear with me. As we've moved into 2025 at pace, I wanted to start my announcement at the first Fire Authority meeting of the new year by briefly reflecting on what was achieved in 2024, a year full of both challenges and triumphs. As we celebrated our 50th anniversary, and our colleagues, the Peterborough Volunteer Fire Brigade, celebrated their 140th anniversary, our crews attended over 8,000 incidents across the county, including 1,700 fires, with an increasing number involving batteries, 460 road traffic collisions, and 125 animal rescues, and more than 100 flooding-related incidents, and 81 co-responding medical incidents with ambulance service colleagues. We welcome more than 40 new firefighters, including first two groups of whole-time recruits that were trained at our new training facility in Huntington. Community safety officers and fire crews visited more than 7,000 vulnerable households across the county to deliver safe and well visits, and over 1,000 in 2023. Whilst crews and fire protection officers delivered safety advice to more than 800 businesses and 3,500 fire hydrants were checked and serviced. And if that wasn't enough, midway through the year, we appointed Matthew as our Chief Fire Officer following the retirement of Chris Strickland, and we went live, as you all know, with our new mobilising system, the first of its kind with the French company Sistel. As the second lowest cost per head funded fire and rescue service in one of the fastest growing areas of the country, these figures are simply outstanding, and the resilience and community spirit shown by everyone has been truly inspiring. Whilst we have a budget item on the agenda today and we'll have an opportunity to discuss the details, I wanted to reassure members and those viewing this meeting that we have continued to lobby government about funding, but the reality is that there is no additional money to cover the loss of income from Suffolk for when they finally depart. The fight for fairer medium-term funding continues, and a bid focused on supporting investment in the fire sector allows us to respond to the significant challenge of matching resources to risks will be submitted to government this month. Taking the decision to increase tax is always a difficult one. However, the £4.95 on council tax and continued growth across the county means that no cuts will be required for next year, and we hope that with careful planning, we will continue to have the right resources and the right places to meet future demand. February has rolled around again, and with that, we look forward, as always, to supporting LGBT plus History Month. This year, the theme is activism and social challenge, reflecting the powerful role the LGBTQ plus individuals have played in shaping history and advocating for equality and justice. With music being such a powerful medium, colleagues will be spotlighting iconic musicians who've not only left a mark on the music industry, but have broken barriers and inspired generations. They will regularly be posting new tracks, either written, performed, or related to the LGBT plus community. So please keep an eye on internal communication channels and feel free to share any music to join in the celebration. Enjoy the month, show your support in whatever way you wish, and let us continue to build a workplace where everyone feels valued, respected, and included, and can bring their whole self to work. Also, many of you will be aware with our firebreak intervention for vulnerable young people, and be aware a dedicated webpage on our website. You can find a host of information regarding the scheme, including a short video giving an overview of it. The scheme has recently been adopted to enable us to discharge our statutory responsibilities under the Serious Violence Duty, and this amended offer has been recognised by both National Fire Chiefs Council and Home Office as an exemplar for good practice. The MP for North Cambridgeshire, Sam Carling, recently attended a pass-out event and was impressed enough to mention the scheme in the House of Commons, in turn receiving a positive response from the Leader of the House, the Right Honourable Lucy Powell. Of course, we couldn't deliver the scheme without leadership, dedication and support of our colleagues across the organisation, who give everything to ensure the attending young people have the most enriching week we can provide. On their behalf, I would like to offer all members the opportunity to attend one of the passing out events. Over the next 6 months, schemes are running at Stanground, Cottenham, St Ives, Sawston, Cambourne and Huntington. And if anyone would like to attend the event, please let an officer know. Members will recall that we were able to see the new concept fire appliance before our last authority meeting. And I'm pleased to say that it has now also been showcased to local media and trade press with positive reporting. The piece of work, ongoing for 12 months, combines a few areas that service has been focusing on substantially and protection of our firefighters while enhancing their work environment. I look forward to hearing more about this work when the agenda item on our sustainability strategy is presented. And finally, I look forward to the opportunities that the new year will bring. I hope to see as many familiar faces at our next meeting in June as the elections allow us, so that all together we can continue to build on our successes and work towards a brighter future for our county. Thank you. And if we're moving on to probably the most important item today, in my opinion, item 4, the Fire Authority budget for the municipal year 25-26 and the Treasury Management Strategy. Can I ask Matthew to introduce this report?
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, councillors. I wanted to give some context. We can go into the detail afterwards, but I wanted to give some context in terms of where we are, I suppose. We have been through a period of years of significant challenge for the authority. We've had wonderful support from yourselves in terms of maintaining a position and responding to reduced funding against the context of growth in our county, 20% additional population since 2010-11, and the 14% increase in housing. And we've done that with 10% less operational whole-time firefighters. Now, what the £5 offers us this year is an opportunity to start. It's only a start to actually invest again. We planned 2 years ago for Suffolk leaving. Now, I do not agree with that decision at all, as you all know, and it's costing us £950,000 that would have been able to be put into the operational whole-time service, which I can't. So the £5 effectively is covering and masking that position. But what this budget presented to you does do is actually it starts to put us back onto an even keel. What we've done, and we presented 2 years ago as a collective, there was business rates funding that we chose not to put into our base budget at that time. We used it for one-off projects, which you supported us with, which has been great. This year, we put that into our base because obviously Suffolk going, and we've had to catch up on a number of other cost pressures as well. But I suppose in summary, what you're going to get this year with the additional £5, or what the public are going to get, is an additional 8 whole-time firefighters. It would have been a whole lot more if it hadn't been for Suffolk. Okay, but 8, but it does start to build some resilience in the system again. We're going to put in a pay award of 2%, which again we won't know until July whether or not that's sufficient or not. We're going to put in one post regarding growth, because actually this service and this authority needs to be looking forward now. The county is going to continue to grow, and we need to be at the forefront for ensuring that we are bidding for funds at the earliest opportunity. And the final bit is actually the point that Councillor Jimmill raised around partnership working. So health, we've got a wonderful partnership with health on we call them community welfare officers. That piece of work was on a trial. Health have said they'll continue to fund 60% of that cost, but they've asked us to fund 40%. And actually there is value in 40% for us, significant value. So this budget also accounts for that as well. So not a huge investment, and I'd have loved to have been able to invest more if we'd have continued the collaboration with Suffolk, but unfortunately we can't. But effectively it does mean that we can actually grow slightly in the next financial year. So that's an introduction, but happy between myself and Ursula. If it's too much detail, Ursula will obviously help me out now, because she's done a wonderful job of preparing this budget, and so have the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Members, do you have any questions for Matthew or Ursula? I don't see any hands. I thought you were going to say something. We're being asked to approve the budget. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Simone. Councillor Taylor.
Just sorry, Chair, late one there. So just going on what you've just spoke about, 60-40 to carry on the trial. So that's really good news. Does that give us any more personnel within that, or is it still the same ratio as what we had in the trial?
The numbers remain the same, Councillor Taylor. So we've got two CWOs, and it means that we can keep them for another year and carry on the great work. So obviously you'll appreciate we've won a number of national awards as a result of that partnership. So yes, it would have been disappointing if the funding had been withdrawn, but we can collaborate further. So okay.
Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Just one item on page 20, funding, the council tax precepts. You've assumed a growth of 1% in housing. With the current government's drive for new housing, is the assumption of growth of 1% realistic? And what would be the financial implications should the 1% growth be exceeded?
So in terms of future growth, yeah, 1%, anything over and above that has a positive impact on our position, clearly. And I think from our perspective, whilst there's ambition, obviously the market will and demand will dictate how quickly houses are built. So I think it's a prudent and realistic estimate, which hopefully will be exceeded, because anything that's exceeded we do benefit from, Councillor.
Councillor Kindersley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very happy with the recommendations, and they, I think, have been to a number of our subcommittees. So I think members probably gave Ms. Bird a roughing up, as it were, at those committee meetings in relation to detailed questions. But I do want to make a very general point, and that is about the relationship with Suffolk. And I would like residents of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough to understand that they are all being significantly and negatively impacted by a decision made by another authority, which, frankly, I know we all struggle to understand the rationale behind Suffolk's decision, especially in the light of its fairly recent inspection by government, where all of the metrics were poor except for two. And I would have thought, were I a member of the Suffolk Fire Authority, that I would be concentrating rather more on dragging the fire and rescue service in Suffolk up off the ground, rather than making Suffolk residents spend a significant amount of public money on replacing a perfectly good system that was provided in association with Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. And this does not augur well, frankly, for residents of both authorities in the light of local government reorganisation, because the government has an ambition to have not only unitaries, but also super unitaries, which would require 1, 2, or 3 counties to have some kind of overseeing. And I want to just sound a small alarm that I do not want the work that has been done by this authority and by the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Fire and Rescue Service over the years, being prudent with taxpayers' money, making difficult decisions, fighting off territorial claims by, for example, the Police and Crime Commissioner. I don't want to see that all disappear into under an umbrella where I also know that there is an organisation that doesn't appear to care much about their own residents and taxpayers, as far as I can understand it from the decisions that they have made. So that's a roundabout way of saying that I hope that local government reorganisation doesn't include anything to do with Suffolk for us.
Thank you for that. I think those are sentiments shared by most of this authority and its members anyway. Is there any other questions? Councillor Bywater.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just thanks to the team as well. You know, as Sebastian Kindersley said, it's been a lot of work prior to getting to this point, and I think lots of questions were answered in the Policy and Resources Committee. So thank you very much. And just from my own personal point of view, is none of us like to see council tax increases, but this is a minimum amount for the best possible service that we can get and supporting the service that we can get. So I'm happy to support this. And I just want to row in behind Sebastian in relation to his comments over Suffolk, really. I know we've raised this in the Policy and Resources Committee in the past, but yeah, it does make me sit here and scratch my head and think about the logic behind it all, really, especially in light of the recent announcements over in Suffolk. And yes, I wouldn't like to see any of our hard work over many, many years undone, basically. So thank you. And just one question for Matthew. I know we talked about the growth percentage, but in the past we've always sat here and pondered about inflationary increases and ultimately the salary increases. Have we got the necessary mitigation in place to manage that should it exceed our expectations?
I suppose the easy answer is it would depend how much they exceeded by. If it was very low percentage excess, then yes. If it was too much, then clearly we'd start to have a challenge, and we'd be looking to fill that void with reserves in the short term. That said, the NJC have started the negotiation. It appears that it's a more balanced negotiation process this time round. So hopefully there'll be a sensible outcome that will be in line with inflation.
And just a supplementary, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Matthew. I know it's always a difficult one to call. We always have this dilemma every year, and I guess it's just about how you keep members briefed on that journey, really.
I think just going on from what Councillor Bywater and Kinderley have said, I think it's important for the residents of Cambridgeshire to know that we've tried everything possible. We've had meetings with them. We've tried to lobby government to try and keep Suffolk on board. And so we've done everything we can within our power. It's just that they just didn't want to play ball. So I think it's important that that message gets out as well. Members, we're being asked to approve the budget book attached at Appendix 1, including the recommendations detailed on page 17, and to approve the Treasury Management Strategy Statement at Appendix 2. Are we happy to approve? Unanimous? Thank you very much, members. Okay, members, if we move on to item number 5, the Fire Authority External Audit Report and the final statement of accounts. Can I ask Ursula Bird, Assistant Director of Finance and our Section 151 Officer, and Claire Mellins, Partner at Ernst Young, to introduce this report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. So the action required from the members is to review and comment on the external audit report and to approve the financial statements of accounts for 23-24. Please allow me to introduce Claire Mellins from Ernst Young to present the audit report.
Thank you, Ursula. Sorry. So I think members will probably appreciate that we're in quite unprecedented times in terms of the local audit market, certainly over the last couple of years, in terms of the reset and recovery of the local audit system. And so I just want to start off by saying thank you to Ursula and the team for their help to get us into the position that we are ahead of the backstop date for the 23-24 accounts, which is the 28th of February this year. So as you'll be aware from pre-Christmas, your predecessor auditor disclaimed the 21-22 and 22-23 financial statements. And what this means is that we don't have assurance over the opening balances in 23-24 or the movements, and therefore there will be a disclaimer on the 23-24 statements as well. But just to reassure members, this is in line with guidance from the Financial Reporting Council and the National Audit Office, and actually every fire authority, local authority or anybody that has been in the same situation will have a very similar impact in their audit report. So the fire authority is certainly not alone in terms of the form of the opinion that we'll be issuing. I think to give members some reassurance, in Appendix A in our audit results report, we set out the work that we have performed, and we have performed a significant amount of audit work on the 23-24 financial statements, which gives us a really good base in terms of rebuilding the assurance going forward into 24-25 with the finance team. And I think it's also really important to pull out that we have our value for money responsibilities as well, when we've not identified any significant weaknesses in arrangements that we need to refer to on our audit report. So again, that's a really positive piece of assurance to take away from this year. As you can see on the title of this report, it is a provisional audit results report. So when we issue our opinion, we'll issue a final update for circulation. And I guess there's a couple of things I just want to draw to the committee's attention that have changed since we issued this report. So you will see there's a control recommendation there about signed contracts. After Ursula and I got involved with some miscommunications between the team, we have received that. So that control recommendation will come out of the final version of the report. And we'll also update that appendix because it does say that there's a number of areas still subject to our review. So we'll update that for the final position when we issue our audit opinion. I didn't really want to say anything else in the detail of the report, but obviously very happy to take any questions from members.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions for Ursula and Claire? Councillor Kindersley.
Thank you. The world that we live in now is one very much focused around misinformation, and one of the worst times for misinformation is leading up to elections. And I think I suggested at the Policy and Resources Committee, but I might have just thought about suggesting it, that we did a very clear statement, media statement, about why it is that we are in this position with regard to the audit. Because I can see malicious actors saying, I cannot believe it, it's an absolute outrage. Can you believe that the Cambridge and Peterborough Fire and Rescue Service haven't even got audited or properly audited or misstated accounts? And what sort of bothers me about it most is that it isn't actually our fault what happened. And, you know, we were perfectly in the right position to have a whole series of audited accounts, but it was the industry that, I mean, we all know what happened, so I don't need to go into it in any great length. But I do think from that perspective, it would be very helpful to have some kind of clear statement in everyday language, because, saving your pardon, audit language is not quite the same. It's what you might see on a Facebook post. And I do, you know, and I can give you a perfect example of this happening, and it is about a school that came to planning development control, and the fire service does not, as a rule, put forward or endorse anything about sprinklers within the school. And the people involved in that committee are now being berated for allowing small children basically to be burnt alive, is the implication, simply because they weren't asked to agree a sprinkler system. And I can see that this is the sort of thing that people, as I say, malicious actors would fixate on. So I don't know who I'm addressing this to, actually. I'm sorry, I'm looking in all different directions, but I do think it's something that perhaps we should take under advisement.
Claire, would you like to come back on that?
I mean, you wouldn't be alone. So I think there are a number of authorities that have kind of made that position. And just to say that, you know, this is a national issue, the Financial Reporting Council did issue what they call, I think it was an accessible guide. And that does perhaps help to reframe some of this in what is more user-friendly language for members of the public that aren't as involved in the details. So that might be a good place to start if you were to look into issuing some kind of statement.
And I think just to assist, Shaheen would like to come in on that.
Councillor Kindersley, you didn't imagine it. You did ask us, and Ursula and I have worked up some words that will accompany these on our website.
Any further questions? Okay, any further questions? Don't see any hands. So members, we're being asked to review and comment on the external audit report at Appendix 1 and approve the financial statement of accounts for 23-24 at Appendix 2. Are we happy to do that? Yep, thank you very much, members. Okay, we move on to the annual Firefighters Pension Scheme Pension Board update. Matthew and John, I believe it is.
Yeah, if I'll start. I am the scheme manager for Cambridgeshire, and as such, members will be aware that there have been some challenges around the firefighters' pension scheme for some considerable time. Clearly, back in the early 2010s, there was a dispute with regard to the pension scheme, and actually effectively around changing the scheme to one that effectively caused detriment, so was worse for those individuals that were that joined an original scheme. That decision was challenged on the grounds of age discrimination. It was challenged by some judges, which probably they're always on the winner, maybe, and some firefighters, so Sergeant and MacLeod, as it's now known. And basically, to cut a long story short, it is ongoing. It's been ongoing for a long time. It's extremely complicated to unravel because members were transferred onto the new scheme, and now that all needs to be unravelled effectively. And in unravelling that, there's legislation that needs to accompany that unravelling to ensure that those individuals are not detrimented further. And a lot of that is around taxation, individual taxation, and it comes as a result of because pension contributions are tax efficient. So effectively, you don't pay you pay your contribution and then you're taxed after it. Effectively, you're getting a tax-free element effectively. But at the moment, there isn't legislation that supports the reversal. So it could mean they pay tax and then don't get it on the new contributions. So for an individual, as things stand right now, it's extremely difficult for a pension service to effectively give them what their options, full options are. And what we've done all along is maintained a position of saying, we don't believe we should be going down the route right now because you could be worse off as a result of it. However, we will make sure that everybody is paid up fully with interest, because actually there's going to be a interest paid, compensation paid as a result of that by government as we go through the process. So what this is telling you is that that's where we are as a position. HMRC guidance is still ambiguous. So the latest position, we have a number of people that have retired and taken a large lump sum. They are called the Reds. And those people, effectively, we were hoping to be able to give them their options, remedial savings statement, their options by the 31st of March. That doesn't appear it's going to be able to happen because of the confusion around taxation and individual taxation. So we are working hard. We have got all the records. We're in a good position in terms of understanding, but right now we cannot apply it because we may apply it wrong and it'll either come back on the authority or on the individual or both, and we end up in a place where nobody wants to be. So we have been quite consistent with that approach. It's not satisfactory. We would have loved to have had it done and dusted by now, but unfortunately we are still working through those cases. So we have had some lobbying, and I'm sure there will continue to be lobbying, but right now, until we get that legislation through, we are struggling to pay some of those or give them the options of what it might look like. So hopefully I've explained that in a way that's semi-understandable, because it's really, really complicated.
Thank you, Matthew. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Bywater.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. Just in relation to the interest, who sets that bar of interest rates that are, going to be paid?
So government and Treasury are going to be setting that. Yeah, but it's slow. It's a slow process. It's still to be determined, but the likelihood is they'll track interest rates over a period, and it will match that. So, in theory, people shouldn't be worse off than they would have been if they'd got it when they should have got it. If that makes sense again.
So on that then, does that leave the authority at any risk exposure?
No, not so. As things stand at the moment, they will be recompensed for the full cost. The full cost. It's just what we don't want to do is put ourselves in a position where we get it wrong.
Members, before we go to recommendations, any other questions? Councillor Slatter.
First of all, apologies for lateness and any blurred speech from the dentist. First of all, Matthew, I wish I'd had that summary when I took on the pension board for the council as a whole, when it was MacLeod that I was struggling with. And I think I've made a note of the name, the timing, and will maybe point people to it. I'm obviously trusting your judgment that we're not going to be unduly damaging anybody's financial welfare. And I don't think that any of this is on the margin of somebody being at risk of losing a house or anything really drastic like that. But it is good to have on the record that we're understanding is that the interest rate, and in response to Councillor Bywater, will track what actually happened or is going to happen in the near future. We hope it's just the near future. And thank you for coping with the complexities. Thank you.
Okay, if that's it, members, we're being asked to note the contents of this report and approve the latest position regarding the immediate detriment claims and the timetable for processing. Are we happy to approve that, members? Thank you very much. Okay, item number 7 is the Community Risk Management Plan 24 to 29, the amendment. Can I ask Tamsin Murphy, Assistant Director, Service Transmission, to introduce the report?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, members. So I'm asking for you to approve an amendment to the CRMP today. So when we write the CRMP, we do from the 24 to 29 period, and we do a complete risk and opportunity review at that point to look at what's on the horizon and where our focus of activity should be. From that CRMP, we write a detailed action plan every year in terms of how does that translate into our organisation and what activities are we going to be completing. So we've completed the risk and opportunity review. We do an annual refresh every year because things change and we can't predict everything that's going to happen. So we do our annual risk and opportunity refresh, which we've just completed in preparation to complete the draft of our CRMP action plan for 25-26. What we've identified within there, and it links into what Matthew's been talking about earlier on, is around community growth, and especially with some of the conversations that are going on nationally at the moment in terms of the potential for that further growth within Cambridgeshire. So whilst we cover under operational excellence that we have work to continue to look at how we align our operational resources, what we haven't got under community safety excellence is about addressing the growth and identifying and understanding that growth. So that's what we'd like to make an amendment to add that in. Under that, we'd be adding in the growth and planning officer posts with their focus of engaging with the county to understand those growth predictions and help us to start leveraging additional funding through SIL and other opportunities that might be out there. So that's the whole focus of the work stream that we're seeking to add into our CRMP. So at the bottom under 6.2, 6.1 shows you the bullets that we currently have within the CRMP under Community Fire Safety Excellence, and 6.2 is the proposed new activity, which again is, whilst we have a rough view of that growth, what we don't have is the detailed growth and that holistic kind of long-term planning. So it's more about strategic planning and looking at leveraging additional funding that might be available to us through the introduction of that growth post. Happy to take any questions on that.
Thank you for that, Tamsin. Members, do you have any questions? Councillor Kindersley.
Thanks, Chair. It's not a question. It's a welcome. I think this is a very, very significant and important addition to the document, and I think we're going to be using this very much sooner than perhaps any of us actually understand. And I would like to just take the opportunity to say, you know, we all have in our minds a kind of way that planning and development takes place in Cambridgeshire. You know, when I first became a councillor, we were just starting to build out at Cambourne. We spent 15 years talking about building out at Northstowe, and that is now, you know, ongoing. Same with Waterbeach. But the government does have ambitions for significant development, and they are pointing the finger very enthusiastically at us. Certainly at the southern part of Cambridgeshire, and not only at us in Cambridgeshire, and I think Peterborough probably as well is in the firing line, but just across the border in Tempsford in Bedfordshire, where they are anticipating a new town slightly larger than the city of Cambridge. And all of that is going to have, you know, the most extraordinary impact on the service that this authority and this service delivers in many different ways, not least in the ways that the public don't necessarily associate with Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Fire and Rescue Service. In other words, they would expect us to turn up at a fire, but they don't realise that we also turn up at a whole load of other kinds of incidents, of which there are, as the population grows, will be obviously more. So yes, I'm very enthusiastic. I welcome this addition, and I would also welcome the post that comes with it. Obviously, strategic planning is something that theoretically larger authorities do, but ultimately most planning decisions are made by the districts. So I would hope that they would be engaged with the districts right from the start as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I also welcome this. I mean, just as a comment, I'm looking at the map of the fire stations that exist, and Cottenham is right in the middle of Waterbeach and Northstowe. And when you think of it from a fire perspective, you look at it in quite a different way, because there isn't a very good road. In fact, there isn't really a road between Cottenham and Northstowe. So it is, and Cottenham isn't isn't a station the size of Ely, but it's going to have two massive new towns feeding off it. So I think this is a really important piece of work, and and when you look at the map of where services are located, it really kind of focuses the attention. So I think this is very welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Satter?
Thank you. Yes, 5.5, I think it makes it very clear that there is a role for councillors in this, and we've got a record, certainly the short time I've been on this board, of the really good way in which the Fire Authority works with councillors. And I'm sure, and I also know as community safety champion how well they cooperate in the community safety partnerships, and they sort of embody a lot of what we see in section 6 in terms of who's taking part and who the Fire Authority is already on good terms with. And I hope you'll continue to use your county councillors and whatever networks we can help with, because that sort of local knowledge and a broader view across the county helps. Oh, absolutely, Councillor Kinsley is right. The district councils are involved, as you are, in the community safety partnerships, and goodness knows what lies ahead with local government reorganisation. But hopefully what we've built up symbolised in this room and in the community safety partnerships that happen, then we're in a good position to be acting well as a unitary on behalf of our residents. And thank you for being so much one step ahead in terms of trying to get your best out of planning. I think we all wish ourselves all luck with that, because it's not easy, and in some cases it's not possible, but let's push, because it's the planning. Central planning law needs changing to help us get more than we're entitled to at the moment, at the time when there's push for reduction of regulation. And we know that this is going to be a conflict, and hopefully you can use us as best we can help in making clear that Cambridgeshire and all other residents need to be looked after in terms of health and fire services and everything else that the new residents need. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dew?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, a quick one about the SIL funding. Obviously, SIL funding doesn't apply to all the districts in the county, so it's a narrowed area. What activities are going to take place in those districts that don't have SIL funding? Is there some route we can get to it?
Is it Matthew?
Yeah, but that would have to be. But I'm saying it's a different approach. So I'm just wondering, the 106 has to be done at the front of when an application's put in. SIL funding can be bid for afterwards, so there's a different mechanism. So that's why I'm asking the question. I do understand the difference between the two, but the SIL one is reactive in sense of there's a pot in certain districts and there's not in others. Of course, with the changes that are going through, that could all be up in the air anyway, but that might be academic. So it's just a question of is there any additional approach beyond that that's already in the system?
I think John's going to come back on that.
Yeah, thank you. So in the other districts that have section 106, so section 106 funding, which will allow us to bid for services. We have got a consultant that's been working with us in terms of helping us to bid for SIL funding, and also has set us on the right track, if you like, in terms of being able to bid for section 106 money. It's about being at the table at the right time to get our foot in the door, if you will, to allow us to explore those opportunities. But that includes not just capital, but potentially revenue funding over periods of time. So we're looking at some more a matrix of how we can look at what the development means for us in terms of impact, as the previous councillor mentions, which then allows us to put some focus on this is what we think the impact will be, and therefore this is the resource that we need. The police do something similar in other areas of the country, so they've got a kind of a model to work to. So we're looking to produce something similar to allow us to bid for that funding. But yeah, 106 in the other districts and SIL where we need to in the others. No worries.
Members, before we go to recommendation, do we have any more questions? No. In that case, we are being asked to approve the proposed amendment to the Community Risk Management Plan 2024 to 29 as detailed on paragraph 6 of the report. Are we happy to do that? Yep. Thank you, members. Item number 8 is the Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service Sustainability Strategy. Wayne, I believe you're going to take this.
Yeah, good afternoon, members, and thank you for taking time to read through this prior to today. What I wanted to do is I will give you I guess, where we were, where we are, and where we're going overview from this. It gives some really good indications of stuff that we've done in this period of time, but I'll take you through. So thinking about backwards, we were back in 2 years ago. We were already doing some work on our sustainability, very, very low level. We were trying our best, I think it's fair to say. We were doing work with our buildings, we were doing work with our fleet, some significant work in both of those areas to try and work towards a better sustainable approach as an organisation, as an authority, in some small areas. What we did is obviously came to members back in 2022 with a draft outline sustainability strategy. Put my teeth into saying that, sustainability strategy. And I think it's fair to say from that point, we've advanced quite at pace. Back in 2023, though, what we wanted to do is have a fundamental understanding of our emissions. So we commissioned the Carbon Trust to give us a baseline to work to, because actually we wanted something to understand where our gains are and where our focus is, our focus needed to be to gain some of those either marginal gains or some of those significant beneficial gains that we could make. So back in 2023, what we did is we brought across our 5 key streams of people, property, transport, procurement and offsetting. And from that point, we've built our sustainability strategy to all of our themes across our CRMP. And it works as a strand all the way through, as well as some standalone areas which we focus on to provide updates to members through a report, those on plastic reduction, offsetting and waste reduction, which we report on. What I'd like to do, though, is talk about some of the areas of achievement that we've seen over that period of time. So if we take property as an example, we've rolled out electric vehicle chargers at 14 fire stations, giving 38 charging outlets. I have no doubt today that number's changed because we're moving out further and further again. And at that as well, colleagues at East Cambs District Council are using the charging points at our Soham site. So we're starting to branch it out across other agencies. We've upgraded and improved insulation to our buildings with roofs, walls and windows, as well as air source heat pumps being installed at 2 of our fire stations now as part of the refurbishment programmes with all new builds and further installations in the planning stage. And key to it as well in our building areas is our building management system. So understanding how we use our energy and how we use it efficiently in those sites, which has been a huge focus because we can see some significant gains and improvements on that as we go through. It allows us to control both costs as well as educating and controlling the habits of our colleagues on those stations to look after the environments they're working in, which is really important to us. Again, talking around our internal recycling and general waste management, again, significant improvements where 100% of our waste is avoided from going to landfill, and we've increased our recycling year on year. And to underpin that, we began to roll out estate dashboards, utilisation dashboards, to understand our costs and our consumable costs against our footfall and our mobilisation. So we understand how many people are coming onto our stations, how they're being used effectively as well. Onto the transport theme, going on comments made earlier, HVO, vegetable fuel oil, has been installed at our Dogsthorpe site around 14 months ago. It's now used by 10 appliances in that surrounding area. As we know, as we've heavily promoted, it significantly reduces the amount of carbon emissions that we have from our heavy goods vehicles, so from our fire appliances. We started a trial with Hunts District Council, which was back in June last year, which we ran some really good positive news as of today. That's been given the sign-off through Hunts District Council to go as a permanent piece of work, which is fantastic. That's really good news. So I'm going to be working closely with Andy and the team over at Hunts District Council to get that underway as soon as. We've had plug-in hybrid vehicles across all of our operational fleet and from all of our directors as well, through plug-in hybrid vehicles, and we've started to introduce and continue to introduce battery operated cutting equipment for use at road traffic collisions. Again, coming back to a point earlier on, which is something that I think we've done very well at, and I think it's something which we should showcase and we'll learn from, is about bringing in a new concept appliance at Huntingdon, which I'm aware that you've all seen, which is good. that running on HVO fuel currently. We've used a different approach with that. That actually fills up at one of our local fuel stations as part of their trial now as well. But what that vehicle does do is it gives us no fossil fuels on there at all, which is unique to the sector, because we are trying that as an individual concept, and we're going to look to assess the benefits and the realizations from it and look to roll that out across the wider service as we procure more and more vehicles within our current strategy. Moving now to the next one, single-use plastic reduction, again another success, where as one single metric we were using 50,000 bottles of water per year, supplying that on fire appliances and stations. We've reduced that by over a half at the moment, by bringing in some innovations around providing single bottles, for metal bottles, insulated bottles for our people. That's just really an overview of some of those successes we've had. I think looking forward, we're going to continue to use data to demonstrate our largest direction of travel towards achieving that vision net zero. And in 2025, again, I've spoken, we're going to be rolling out some more heat source pumps. We're going to be reviewing further options for solar panel introduction as part of new building work scoping. We're going to again look at our consumption data, which we'll continue to do this year. Interestingly, we're going to be looking further at our paper and printing provision, because we've looked at that now, and that does bring up some very, very interesting numbers and how we can reduce that output there. Digital and data improvements for operational crews, how they work when they're out in the communities, and how we can best provide the service for them as well. And then moving on to the redevelopment of St Neots, which will aim to be, or which will be our first carbon neutral fire station in the county once that's complete. So there's significant areas, and actually one of the areas we have done is seek to release some funding from other areas. So we've submitted a bid into the Combined Authority to look to provide some support, funding support, to further improve our building heat systems and enhance our network. So again, that's very much a where we were, where we are, and where we're going to overview, and I'd welcome any comments or questions.
Thank you, Wayne. Members, do you have any questions? Whoop. Start with you, and then we work our way around.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Wayne, for your report. I wonder if you can tell us a bit more about your plans with regard to solar panels on our existing fire stations.
Okay, so that's going to be looked at through our property stream. So Morris, as our head of property, is looking at that at the moment to see where we can best release some of that opportunity. So where we can best seek to gain from having those solar panels fitted. We are looking at it as a rollout of our newer properties, newer estates. So what we'll look to do with that is review it, bring it back, and then bring it back for comment from Morris's area of responsibility.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Brilliant report. Very good. A lot of work's gone into it. It's obviously it's good. Right. Basically, can I just ask on the procurement, and we put that into contracts and sell it for tenders and everything. Do we ever check up on what other people are doing to make sure that they're sort of up to our standards? I know it's not, I don't mean like Big Brother, but do we ever do that sort of thing? Because we must monitor the contracts, I would imagine, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. So through the procurement teams, what we'll do is we'll look at, for example, when we go out to procure vehicles now, what we will do is go out for a procurement process to look at the most appropriate supplier for our needs. And through that process, that gives us an overview of what the sector is achieving and what the sector is seeking to achieve. Working within for example, within my role and in amongst my peers in other services, it's always good to understand how they're approaching things, how they're working towards, for example, sustainability as a theme. I'm quite happy to sit here and say I think we're leading the way in most areas with that. I know that's a statement, but I genuinely think we are, because what we've done is we've built it into our thinking, we've built it into our strands rather than an add-on. And that's quite hard to benchmark against when others aren't in that arena quite so high. So I think it's interesting. I think we'll start to see that change in the sector. I think we'll start to see it form into people's thinking. But certainly we look to benchmark where we are across that route, yeah.
Any other questions, members? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. I was actually going to pick up on the PV panels. So you spoke about them being on our newer buildings, is there any plans to retrofit if affordability allows us to? Because I think, yes, absolutely, look at new buildings like St Neots. Incidentally, I visited St Neots Fire Station yesterday, met with Morris and James, I think it was, and very much work in progress. There was a big hole at the back, which is going to be a car park, and I was really surprised how far down they have to dig to get that base, because I actually thought it was going to be a building, because I was like, oh, isn't that just foundations for buildings? It was humongous, and I thought I don't know, it was like an underground bunker or something. But yeah, so it's proper work in progress there, but it's going to be fantastic when it finishes, and that sustainability is going to be great. So I would like to see some sort of retrofitting on the buildings, and absolutely HDC are really looking forward to that collaboration with the HVO, and yeah, Cabinet endorsed that, and we're looking forward to that collaboration working with yourselves and anyone else that wants to join us. So that's proper going forward now, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Got Stuart wants to come in on this.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Taylor. And thank you for visiting the site yesterday. It was appreciated by the crews and Morris. We will look to retrofit, and it kind of heads back to the point that Councillor Dew made earlier about where do we find different revenue streams? We spoke about 106 and SIL. We also, Morris and the team, explore sustainable grants from around the county, and recently Peterborough City Council have given us a grant to enhance the sustainability of Dogsthorpe Fire Station. So we will be doing some work there next, and we will continue that work around the county. We retrofitted it a number of years ago at Stanground Fire Station, so we will continue that work. That will happen, but we've been fortunate to secure a grant which makes it even easier for us up in Peterborough. Thank you.
Matthew, do you want to say anything?
I think in terms of all of these emerging technologies, Councillor Taylor, we'll look at them from a cost benefit perspective. And clearly it's bigger than that in terms of sustainability, but ultimately there'll be some sites that perhaps just we won't benefit from, so we won't do it. But there will be hopefully quite a number of others that we will. So I think it is a work in progress. It's not going to be done overnight. We need to invest properly and prudently, but absolutely we will be taking it forward and hopefully be at the forefront still.
Councillor Kindersley, did you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Just two things. First, on solar panels, don't forget that the applicants for solar farms are always very willing, certainly before planning consent is granted or not, to enter into discussions with places where they feel they can get a significant social capital. So village halls, fire stations, local schools, and so on. So that's something just to bear in mind. But what I wanted to just highlight in particular, or ask about, Wayne, possibly, is this. As climate change is predicted to change, we are looking towards much hotter summers and much wetter winters. And I know that development control and building control has a structure that is kind of taking that into account to a certain point. But I would like to know whether, as we are on the leading edge, as it were, as an authority, whether when we're redeveloping fire stations and indeed planning new ones, are we going over and above what is required by development control / building control in addressing those two particular issues, much hotter summers and much wetter winters? Does that make sense?
So going back to that point, yeah, thank you. I think alluding to where Matthew says there, everything that we build into that process of looking at identifying how best to build our new stations, equipment, anything within the way that we deliver our services will always be based upon benefit and outlay of financials. But certainly through our building process, again, we look at St Neots as a prime example. That station needed to be redeveloped, and actually to redevelop in line with how we want to be more sustainable and how we want to provide our facilities for our public and our communities, it will have that balance of how we can do that to the best way of maximising the funds that we have available for it. So yeah, continue, absolutely. We'll always look at that at the forefront of our planning. And again, going back to, I know I said it quite a lot, is we will build sustainability within our thinking, not as an add-on. And it has to come at that point so that we can take it as a balanced approach.
Okay, Councillor Slatter first.
No, Councillor Taylor had her hand up first, but I'll reserve my right to speak if I may.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Councillor Satter. Thank you, Chair. No, it's something that I've just thought about. We aren't using, it's something that I remember seeing in the statement of account. Now, it's saying that we're using biofuel. And is that correct or incorrect? Or is that meant to be that we're using HVO? Because they are two totally different things. Although using vegetable oil, they have a different composition.
I think Matthew will clarify that.
We're using HVO. So if it needs clarity, it needs to be changed, absolutely.
Councillor Slatter, as you reserved your right to speak.
Sorry, it's a habit from this room, isn't it? Yeah, and obviously Councillor Taylor has yet again proved how Huntingdon is ahead of everybody and knows all the detail. And that's related to my question, really, because knowing how important training is within this organisation, because again and again and again and again, you have to train new people and keep that training up to date. I mean, that is a magnificent vehicle for the sort of soft power with low monetary cost of getting these messages out there in a practical way, because it would be hard for anybody to say, well, that's unrealistic. It's only just some people who can do it in the face of what the fire authority is managing to do in a practical way in lots of different places. Is it actually part of our training of our this mouth is getting out of my control, of our firefighters, that they are almost encouraged to be ambassadors and are given the tools in terms of summaries of what we do in the authority, just so when they go back to their usual work, I'm thinking the on-call particularly, they can say, well, we could do that in this business, or I could do that in my shop, whatever their job is. I would hope so, and if not, if you are already doing it, you probably are. Yes, thank you very much for doing it.
So from a champion's perspective, one of the things in this is we're looking to encourage more of our colleagues to come forwards to become champion ambassadors for sustainability, because it's not just one or two or a group's responsibility. It's actually all of our responsibility to do it, and we've got a fantastic workforce out there with some fantastic ideas. And what I really want us to be in is a position where we can harness that and almost slow down the views and the wants of some of our people, then and actually keep bringing it to them to say, we're doing this. We've got some fantastic, I was talking to a firefighter last week who has some absolute passion for how they see that they can operate and how they can have, for example, more sustainable ways of their personal protective equipment, which is something we're looking at through that project as well. So this whole world opens up. And again, when we talk where we were a couple of years ago to where we are now, there's so many options because people have a very, very different view to what they see is important to them now. Sustainability is very important to people, and as an employer, it's important to acknowledge that and important to harness that when you're looking for your future colleagues as well. So absolutely, we're going to widen that out. I'm not saying we're where we want to be, but we're on a journey to where we want to get to.
I think the report is great, and what you're doing is exemplary for the fire service. Can I ask if there are limitations as to, particularly for transport, in terms of, I know that your zero carbon vehicle is still powered by fossil fuels, or not necessarily fossil fuels, but liquid fuels. Is there an equivalent of a sort of range anxiety problem for a fire engine? You don't want to end up at an incident in an isolated area and it run out of battery power.
absolutely. So a HVO fuel is not a long-term solution. HVO is a fantastic medium-term solution for carbon reduction. And again, it gives around anywhere between 87 and 93% reduction on general standard diesel. There are innovations out there in the sector around electric fire appliances. Two limitations on that, absolutely, as you say, is range anxiety, or the fire service equivalent, which is, for us as a rural county, a real challenge. A couple of the areas where they're on trial are metropolitan services where they essentially travel in that square mile environment. That's still a challenge for them. For us, any of our fire stations to put that vehicle at would be a real test, I think is safe to say. Even if we put it, for example, in the centre of Cambridge, that appliance mobilises out of the city. So it's a challenge on that part. The other bigger challenge to that, I would suggest, sitting here talking to you as members, is they are a circa £1 million each. As a standard fire appliance is a circa 300,000. So I would be very challenged to sit here and suggest that I would like to see us invest £1 million in a fire appliance, which has some limitations that I can't justify at this point. Longer term, absolutely, the future is to go to a total zero emissions vehicle. I think what we're doing is we're filling the gap to the best of our abilities at the moment with what's out there in the marketplace. And I think to do that, we just keep looking for those, I use the term marginal gains of where we can. And I think the vehicle at Huntingdon is our first part to that. We'll continue to do that, because that's twofold. It's both for our firefighter safety, which is another area we're focusing hugely on, as well as sustainability. So I think in answer to your question, absolutely, cost is prohibitive. Range anxiety and the ability to provide a service is probably, for me, the bigger anxiety that would be very difficult to be able to sit here and comfortably say it's something we'd explore now. Future, absolutely, but
Thanks, that's a very useful answer.
Members, any other questions? No. So we're being asked to review and provide comment, which I think we've done. We're appropriate on the contents of the report and the sustainability strategy itself, Appendix 1. We agree? Thank you very much, members. Okay. If we move on to item 9, can I ask Hayley Douglas, Assistant Director of Communication Engagement, to introduce a report on our Rescue Service Employee Engagement Survey 2024?
Thank you very much, Chair. We carried out our employee engagement survey last October and November. We had the results presented back to us in December. So this was an opportunity for us to give a summary of the results today. It is high-level summary stuff at the moment. There's a lot of work still to do the complete deeper analysis of the results. There's hundreds of free text answers to go through still yet. So this is presenting a good summary for you today. So we carry out an employee engagement survey roughly every 2 years. We have done since about 2017. We tend to use the same, roughly the same, most of the questions are the same questions each year, so we can benchmark how we're progressing each year. However, we do also add just a handful of extra questions that help give us feedback about things that we're currently doing at the time that we might want some feedback on. In 2022, we changed supplier. So we use an external supplier to do the survey for us because it gives confidence in that confidentiality and anonymity for our colleagues, in the hope that they'll complete it and feel safe that any responses won't come back to them. The benefit of the new supplier that we went with, they do the employee engagement surveys for about, there's at least 15, I think, other fire and rescue services. So for the first time 2 years ago, it gave us an opportunity to benchmark our own service with other fire and rescue services. And this year, we've also been able to get the all sector average as well, which is for all other sectors that they do employee engagement surveys for, which has been really useful feedback for us. We heavily promote the survey to everybody in the service. It's open for 6 weeks. They get constant reminders about it, managers promote it, etc. And the company that carry out, they send reminders out as well. It's a mix of multi-choice questions. However, there are, as I said, some free text responses as well in some of the questions where we might want a bit of a deeper understanding of things, though that is the bit that then takes longer to analyse. but we will be doing that. So in terms of the findings result, we had a response rate of 56%. This was about 300, well, it was 352 people out of 633 that were on the books at the time. This was slightly down on 2022. However, the company that did the survey said this was actually a really good response rate in the current time. So we were pleased with that. 58% said that they trusted that the survey results will be considered by SLT in future decision making, the senior leadership team, strategic leadership team. This was up 17 points from 2022. And I think for me, really showed that actually we did listen last time, and colleagues can see that we did listen last time, and then we have taken on board what they said. So that was a really real positive for us. And I'll talk at the end about some of the stuff that we have done since the last survey. We asked colleagues to describe the culture of Cambridgeshire Fire and Rescue Service. The most frequently used words that came up were welcoming, friendly, supportive, inclusive, positive, open, respectful and professional. Now, considering our values are welcoming, respectful and professional, it was really pleasing to see that these words were reflected in how people felt our culture is in the organisation. Our overall employee engagement score was 84%, and this is 7 points higher than 2022. And 2 points higher than the fire sector average, which was again pleasing to be 7 points higher than last time. Generally, colleague experience has become more positive since 2022 in most areas, with highest increases in leadership, enablement and engagement. 75% of colleagues believe that CFRS has a positive culture, which was a 7-point improvement from 2022. The highest performing areas were, I care about the future of Cambridge Fire and Rescue Service, 94% agreed or strongly agreed. And a positive one for us was, I know how to access support for mental health and wellbeing. That was 93% positive. People knew how to access those services. We asked people what the best thing was about working for us, and the most common keywords were around people and teamwork, values and culture, and work satisfaction. Again, all the stuff that we would kind of like to see up there, how people feel. We've done a bit of a table in 6.10. You can see our results in some of the areas that talk about CFRS as an employer, comparing to the fire service average and all sector average. Things like, I'm proud to work for CFRS, I care about the future, I'd recommend CFRS as a great place to work, still like to be working here 2 years' time, etc. And as you can see, in every category, bar the last one, which we cannot compare with others, we are above the average in the all sector and above the average in the fire sector average as well, with 82% of employees being satisfied with CFRS as an employer, which is really positive. We were really pleased to see that all the wellbeing related questions scored positively. People feeling supported about their physical and mental health at work, people feeling able to manage their well-being at work, being comfortable with workload, striking the balance between work and home life, and as I said earlier, being able to know where to go for support if needed. The areas with lower satisfaction scores were around promotion processes, people having the opportunity to have their say about changes before decisions are made, knowing kind of how we're doing as an organisation against our action plan, and the reasons for decisions being explained to people properly. So there's got some areas in there where immediately we know that we've got some work that we can do. Colleagues were asked what's one thing they would change about the service to make it a better place to work. Now, this is where I need to spend some time really pouring through those comments. I've had a quick look through them, and to be honest, they're quite difficult to group together because there's a lot of individual thoughts that are kind of one-off comments relating to that individual. But that, for me, is where we're going to get a lot of the stuff for the action plan that will follow this around where we can improve the service. Just there are other areas of note as well. Within there, there's also some stuff in there about our service values and behaviours. You know, we can see from the results that we have a good culture at Cambridge Fire and Rescue Service, and it's always been something that we're proud of. There is some stuff in here as well that shows there's still some work to do in that area, which is, you know, good feedback for us, and that's something that we'll take on board as well. Just to end with, I suppose, just a summary of where as a service, we've come since the last survey in 2022. And where I think the biggest difference has come in people actually trusting in the survey, trusting that we'll listen and make changes. In the 2022 survey, again, it was largely positive, but there were some real standout areas in there where people had some dissatisfaction with around our training recording system and around our process that we had for kind of managing trauma support after a traumatic incident. They had been on our radar, but we accelerated the priority of those after the last survey. And since then, changes have been made. And in December, both had new systems put in place, which was really positive. There was equally some lower satisfaction last time with transparency of promotion processes. We've since introduced independent assessors to our recruitment and promotion processes, and we've improved the way we offer feedback. We've also done some work identifying, we took the survey and we looked at the responses against the protected characteristics to see whether there was anything that stood out. And there were a couple of areas where our female colleagues scored slightly differently to male colleagues. So we had a Women's Development Day. We've had two since we did the 2022 survey. And we've taken some of those. The first one, we delved into those a bit more. And then some of the stuff that came out of that, we introduced speakers to talk around those topics in the Women's Development Day we had in November. So we really do use the survey results in so much of what we're doing and thinking. And immediately from the results I can see this time, what we've got in the survey, we can immediately feed into some of the projects we've got running as well. And we give some really good feedback for those projects to get them going. So in conclusion, the 2024 Employee Engagement Survey was really positive, demonstrated continual improvement in most topic areas. It shows us comparing favourably to not other fire and rescue service benchmark, but also the all sector averages as well. The areas where it does reveal lower satisfaction, we will take them on board. We'll delve into those in more detail and we will address them and put together a bit of an action plan. But equally, it's also important for us to understand why we're doing well in some of the areas where we're doing really well in, because obviously we want to be able to maintain that as well. So the next steps are just that, to take a much deeper dive into the analysis, do a lot of the cross-analysis against protected characteristics, different groups of colleagues within the organisation, to work with those heads of groups to understand that and to put in place an action plan. And we'll bring a progress report, an action plan back to Fire Authority if that's something that you'd like to see in the future. Thank you very much. Happy for any questions.
Thank you for that, Hayley. It's actually good to read a report with so much positives in there when you see some of the problems that fire authorities up and down the countries have had with regards to that, and then what our employees are saying about us. So members' questions. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Good report. Can I ask, is this anonymous? I may have missed it in your talk or in the thing, in the report.
It is anonymous, yes. Yeah, it's always a difficult one. Yeah, we have a number of other avenues around the service other than the survey where we try and find out what colleagues' experiences are. So, for example, we have particularly around misconduct and stuff, we have anonymous reporting systems. We have they can go to our people team. They can go through their line manager. Interestingly, that's one of the questions that we can delve into a bit deeper to understand, is it in a particular area of the service, or what are some of those things that are coming through? So where we ask the question of people whether they have been on the receiving end of misconduct, well, what was it, and did you report it? So we can get a better understanding of kind of what was going on. But you're right, the survey's never going to reach everybody. We try our absolute utmost to get people to complete it. We have to kind of take it that it's high enough for us to think that that is speaking on the majority of people. We do station visits where we go out and talk to people as well, and they're very open in the feedback that they give. So there are other avenues that people can kind of give their feelings as well.
Councillor Bywater.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great report, Hayley, and thanks for all the effort and work you put into this. Any organisation, whether it be the fire service or business, anything, the element of self-reflection works wonders when you know what you're doing well and when you know you need to improve on stuff. And I'm going to particularly talk about the mental health stuff. You know, the journey that this organisation's been on has been really good. And funny enough, I was just talking to Tasmin before the meeting starts about, you know, that improvement for staff really. And also, I think, you know, it's really good to see the 91% that they know how to access mental health support. So that's really good. And, you know, mental health, whether that's attending a traumatic incident or even just, you know, coping with your workload, are all intrinsically linked really. So, you know, just a big pat on the back, really, say well done. And, you know, let's not rest on our laurels, keep pushing forward. Thank you.
Matthew, do you want to come back?
Thank you. And yeah, just following on from Councillor, we're not complacent and we won't be complacent. We've worked really, really hard to get a positive culture across the organisation. It's extremely important to me and to the wider senior leadership team that continues. And we want to be that open organisation, but we want to learn. Councillor Smith, your point, you know, there's clearly people that, for whatever reason, it might be good that they're not engaging, but we need to understand why. And ultimately, when it comes around again in 2 years, we'll be measured and we'll go out again and we'll ask for an opinion. But hopefully we'll have made progress again. And we're going into those areas that are deemed to be perhaps less positive. Because we don't get everything right all the time, but certainly that's what we're striving to do. So, yeah, no complacency at all from a senior leadership perspective.
Any other questions, members? If not, we're being asked to review and comment on the results of the survey detailed in paragraph 6, review and comment on the service plan in terms of the next steps detailed in paragraph 9, and to agree to receive an update report on the progress against the next steps detailed in paragraph 9 in the next 6 months, in 6 months' time. Are we agreed with that? Thank you very much. Okay, item 10 are the dates of the Fire Authority. Can I ask Tamar, Democratic Services Officer, to present this report, please?
I was just very briefly present. You'll see the dates up to mid 2026. And if anyone had any comments on the dates, any questions?
Members, any questions? Councillor Slatter.
It's not actually a question. A lot of my remarks aren't in this place particularly. It's usually admiration. But this is my last meeting. I see, as you've carefully cancelled my other appearance because it's coming up to elections. So very much appreciate the honour of being a member of this authority. It sounds terribly creepy, but it's true. And I can see other people feel the same way. So thank you very much. I have no intention of using your services in the foreseeable future, unless it's perhaps the older drivers course, but please carry on the good work the way you're doing. Thank you.
Councillor Kindersley.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if I can beg your indulgence, this too will be my last meeting of the Fire Authority, on which I've served on and off since 2005. I was just trying to add up in my mind how many chief fire officers I've worked my way through, but I have ended up at the pinnacle with Matthew. I would like to pay tribute, however, to everybody who works for the service, who, without exception, I have found just delightful to work with, friendly, open, engaged, constructive. I mean, I think that actually the employee results of the survey are just a small microcosm of what my experience of being a member of the Fire Authority has been. So I would like to thank each and every single person involved for making being a member of this Fire Authority such an enormous pleasure. And I will be calling on their services of the fire service again, because I'm endlessly having deer wrapping themselves around trees in my patch, including in my neighbour's garden. So I'm looking forward to that happening again. So yes, it's been a very great pleasure. And of course, I have also served with a lot of colleagues, particularly Kevin, who over the years have been stalwart supporters of this authority, and I look forward to my replacement and our replacements, Councillor Slatter, doing good works in the future, supported by the same fabulous team. Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. On the same line, this will be my last, apart from the overview and scrutiny as well. Yeah, just pretty much echo everything that you both just said, and you probably won't get rid of me that easily, because I am still on HDC and still very much involved with any collaboration that we do. So that, you know, and I will still be keeping in contact with St Neots Station. Thank you.
Matthew?
If I can just thank you for your support through the many years, certainly Councillor Kindersley, nearly 20 now, and those other members that are newer to the authority. We've had great support, really have had great support over the years, and actually we wouldn't have achieved a lot of what we've achieved without all of your support. So I thank you for that. And I suppose I look forward to continuing that support with your replacement. So thank you.
Councillor Gardner? No? No. Okay, members, there is one more item left. If I can ask John Anderson to leave the room. I'm going to talk about you, so I might as well tell you before. Okay, members, further to Tamar's email on the 7th of February, may I ask Matthew Warren to present this verbal item on the ratification of John Anderson's substantive appointment as Deputy Fire Chief Officer?
Thank you. Okay, so members will probably remember there was a change in terms of delegations that make the appointment of Deputy Chief and Assistant Chief my responsibility now, but comes back here for ratification. We went through a process, started just before Christmas, where we attracted 4 candidates. We shortlisted down to 1 candidate. Unfortunately, the other 3 didn't meet the essential criteria. It's probably reflective, and again, in terms of the UK fire market at the moment, there's a reflection that it is difficult to attract the right caliber of people. Luckily, we had 1 candidate that was John, that actually took it extremely seriously, was extremely professional, absolutely smashed it out of the park in terms of his application process and his interview. The interview itself was conducted not only by me, but by Edna, by our acting head of HR, Laura, and we had Rob Bridge, who was our independent panel member from the combined authority. So we had that, hopefully those checks and balances. But John did a great job. He's a thoughtful individual when you get him going, but absolutely gives me great confidence in where we're trying to go in the future as well, and certainly somebody that I can rely upon and trust as we move forward. So hopefully you'll agree and ratify that decision today. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions? Any debate, members? If not, yeah. If not, we're being asked to ratify the appointment of John Anderson as Deputy Chief Fire Officer for the Fire Authority. Are we in agreement? Excellent. Thank you. John, you'll be pleased to know you had unanimous support from members. Thank you. Members, that concludes the meeting today. I just want to wish all those who retired the best of luck, and good luck to all those who are standing in the elections. Okay, thank you very much.